Welcome to Unlocking the Parenting Code. I'm Kathy, and this is the space where we dive into real-life parenting stories. Because let's face it, raising kids today can feel like trying to crack a complicated code. Together we'll explore the ups and downs, share insights, and swap tips that make this journey a little smoother. So grab a cup of coffee, relax, and let's unlock the parenting code together. Today, I'm excited to introduce Alyssa Wolff. Alyssa is a homeschooling mom of 5 children, ranging from ages 5 to 15, and she's been dedicated to nurturing their growth for nearly 16 years. With a family rooted in the homeschool tradition, Alyssa and her husband envisioned a large family filled with excitement and camaraderie. She's passionate about fostering independence in her children while creating a loving and structured environment at home. Together, they enjoy the rhythm of family life that balances learning, play, and the joys of growing together. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kathy.
Am I saying your name right?
Alyssa, but that's
Alyssa.
fine.
I should have checked beforehand. I thought, oh, is it Alicia or Alyssa? Alyssa. Okay. Well, Alyssa, let's start with your personal parenting story and what challenges you faced, how you navigated the situation, and what you learned. It's likely that someone listening to this episode will hear something in your story that helps them along the parenting road.
Thank you. Mine is a homeschooling story. I had followed the same type of curriculum and the same educational philosophy from kindergarten to 8th grade, so I saw no reason why that couldn't work for 9th through 12th grade. And that's what I proceeded to do when my daughters hit high school, and we ran into problems. They had a lot of pushback on why mom was telling them each and every subject they had to take, in which order, whether or not they liked it, or it suited their particular talents and giftings. And I realized, just because I took whatever homeschool subjects my mother told me to, and my husband was the same way, that approach is not going to work with our girls. Not unless I want to ruin our parent-child relationship and say, I don't care how angry you are about this, do it because I said so. So I took about a year diving into homeschooling memberships, going through multiple curriculum changes, at each step of the way, going back to my daughters saying, all right, well, maybe you don't like physics. What other sciences are typical? What could we start you with first and leave physics towards the end? Which then gradually became, well, what if we just took 4 sciences in high school? And it's okay if physics isn't any of them if you're not going to be an engineer. And then that turned into, well, who said that all had to be 4 homeschool sciences? What if you clept something? What if you took something at a local university? We can give you a wider range of science options. They don't all have to be homeschool, high school science. That was one of the changes, for example. And other ones were allowing each daughter to tailor their own high school degree programs, almost like an apprenticeship. Because I was so used to doing it as a cookie cutter, each child passes down the same textbook to the next one. It was almost a foreign concept to me to say, oh, but this daughter's a writer and this one wants to be an engineer. And the writer is really, really good at creative writing and the engineer couldn't write a story to save her life. Why shouldn't they get specialized training that still meets the criteria for a high school education, but is focused on developing their own talents and abilities? But it took me, the mom, as the homeschool guidance counselor, several attempts at going through this. And now they are happy with their subjects. They are actively looking forward to college, to their skill developments, and they enjoy homeschool discussions with me when I'm saying, ooh, I found this new great course. Or you tell me at the end of this one, if you loved it, we'll find another from the same company. I am co-creating with them. I am not ordering them. You shall take this, this, and this.
I think that's brilliant. Like, I would think that's one of the main advantages of homeschooling, that you can really personalize and individualize what and how your children are learning. Are you, is that trickling down? Are you also incorporating that with the younger ones?
A little bit, yes. when I found that one of mine was a right brain learner, I then looked to see who else in the family is a right brain learner and took the strategies I used with her for her younger brother. So he doesn't have to have the full loadout of what are your gifts, talents, and abilities, and you must know that right now at 10 years of age. But I can still take the general, right brain learners work better with this curriculum than this one, and it helps if they skip this until they're 2 years more mature. Okay, great. Now I have a new set of expectations for him.
That's yeah, I really like that. I've been amazed recently. I have had so many conversations with families that have chosen to homeschool. Like it's almost the majority of people that I have spoken with. Whereas when I was growing up, I never heard of homeschool unless the child was sick and had to be have their schooling done at home. So it's very interesting, and each situation seems to be slightly different. And it is very, very interesting. What was the inspiration behind your decision to homeschool your children?
It was expected because my mother homeschooled me and my husband's mother homeschooled him. So,
What was their reasoning? Do you know?
my husband's mother pulled him out of public school because they were in a very low educationally ranked state in the United States. And he was not getting very rigorous academic instruction. So he was coming home not always knowing what he should have or saying, the teacher told me this. And they're like, what? So they were not satisfied and they knew they could do a better job homeschooling. Now, my mother's was more on the other end. She was considering going overseas. And if she took the family overseas, they wouldn't have access to public schools, in which case she might as well get started homeschooling early.
Okay. Well, interesting. How has making that decision right from the beginning to homeschool all of your children, how has that impacted or shaped your family dynamic?
It took the option off the table. Public school was kind of never an option for us. So I knew I would be having however many kids we had at home with me until they left for college or vocational training or the military or wherever they chose to go. So that was kind of a given. And I also expected it would allow them more time for play during the day because that was my experience growing up. Schoolwork only took half the day.
So have you tailored some of the things that you're incorporating with your style of homeschooling based on the way you were homeschooled yourself?
Yes, that's how I started off. I kind of used all my mother's curriculum choices on our kids and came into it with the same expectation of you will be done before afternoon nap time. If you are having trouble, mommy will help tutor you. As soon as you are mid-elementary, you will learn yourself from the book. I do not teach every lesson. I don't see that as my role. I let the curriculum developer do that because I figure they do a way, way better job than I would. And I am there to re-explain the concept if you don't understand it the first time.
How much technology are you using?
That was another of the shifts that came with that whole high school revamp. We had not used any technology at all prior to that.
Okay.
And one of the children, turned out, is going into computer science. So that opened the whole Pandora's box. And suddenly we're like, all right, you need courses in this area, you need skill development. Grandparents are like, oh, would it help if you had another device? Well, yes, actually, I guess it would. So now she has a laptop. She is required to share the laptop with her siblings if they have something they need to do, and she is done with her schoolwork. Then some of the younger kids were like, we would like to play games on a laptop. Like, no. And then even that shifted to, we would like you to do more chores around the house. I will start permitting 30 minutes of tech time watching approved YouTube channels that are educationally enriching and the kid can choose themselves if you have done your room pickup or the extra special chore mommy wanted you to do. So again, that was a parenting shift. I was completely opposed to any kind of tech time reward system until I found out it really, really worked for some of my kids. And I was like, well, isn't this actually a win-win? They're learning they can get things they want for doing work. That is kind of how it works as an adult. And if they are learning from like science YouTube channels, if that's all they want to watch, isn't that educational simply in a different format? I didn't grow up with that. I grew up pre-computer, like that came in partway through. But they're starting out with it. So isn't that better for some learners, the visual learners, as opposed to the textbook learners? I have 5 kids, not all of them are textbook learners. So we now use technology quite a lot.
Yeah. It's really about being intentional, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's what it all boils down to. Yeah.
Each one is evaluated. This is not a blank check. It is, why do you want this? Is it actually better for you? Do you learn better with a technological version for this subject, or would you learn better with pencil and paper? And then each child gets that same evaluation. Just because one kid learns really well via computer, another kid might not.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you make sure that your older children are staying motivated and engaged? You maybe answered it a little bit where you said that it's quite independent as far as your being right there with them, but like, do you monitor, like when you need to, I would guess that you need to spend more time with the younger ones, and you've got a big range from 5 years old to 15 years old. So how do you make sure that the older ones who are doing things more independently manage to stay focused and engaged?
That comes down to the child's personality. So the firstborn is very firstbornish and self-responsible. She still needs check-ins, but they're very light and they're closer to once a week. The next one is a happy-go-lucky middle child. She's not quite so set and solid. That's part of what she is working on. So her, I check in with multiple times a day until she has built that muscle to do it on her own. I have to check in with her. Similar amount as I might do with her younger brother. But again, it's kind of, I'm having to relearn that I can't just expect the same standard from each child, because I'm an oldest, my husband's an oldest, and I have parented my oldest for the longest length of time. So I am used to the way an oldest child operates, but I only have one, and I cannot expect that standard of behavior and responsibility at a young age from every single one of them.
You seem to be able to individualize like quite well. And that, I would think that would be a very important part of homeschooling a larger number of children.
That's one of my core values, because I don't see why you couldn't then use some of your free time developing your own skills, interests, and abilities before you get to college and you pick a major.
Yeah, yeah. What's the most exciting part about homeschooling for you and your kids?
I really enjoy the high school, seeing what you might be good at and seeing someone actually get excited to do a course, not because, I need to take science, but because they love that kind of science. They want to take another, they want the more advanced level next. Like they're actively coming to me and asking for more. And then we're having the conversations like, if you really like this, what jobs are there available? And suddenly it's like the fire turns on, like, this is an internal drive now. I want this because I want that kind of job working with those kinds of people or machines or whatever, which means I need this, and this. I want to do all of those things now, even if not all of them are the skills and talents necessary. You're looking at the math prerequisites or the language prerequisites and saying, I don't care, those will get me to there. Okay, sure, I'm all in.
It often seems that the public school system kind of squelches that desire and motivation because there's not the consideration of, how to get to the destination that you want to get to, but doing it on your own terms and things that make sense. Like it's, yeah, I would think that would be one of the real draws to homeschooling, actually. How do you balance out the social components?
Since we have such a large family, all the kids are playing with each other. So that's been the main probably social component. And then our teens volunteer at their church in several different capacities, which I think is good for them because they are often interacting with adults. Some of the time it's interacting with the classroom. So it's with younger kids. Obviously, they get a lot of experience with that at home. And then the rest of the time, it's in positions where they are expected to fulfill an adult's responsibility. So that I think is also beneficial.
Do they do any, like clubs or activities that get them in with more children?
They did when they were younger. And now that they are teenagers, they feel they do not have much in common with other teens who simply want to be on their phones, talk about boyfriends, whatever.
Okay, so I'm going to skip back a bit because you said both you and your husband were homeschooled. So, and then after you were finished your high school, what did you both do?
We both went straight to college.
And did you have any difficulty with socializing or connecting with other people who had gone through the regular school system?
No, we were always in at least one activity at a time in high school ourselves. And my husband worked part-time jobs. And the college we both went to had, well, at least for university, a fairly high percentage of homeschoolers. So it was okay to be awkward. There were plenty of other people more awkward than you were.
Wow, that sounds so then what advice would you give to parents who are considering homeschooling? Maybe the parents are working from home and like, okay, in general, what advice would you give them if they were thinking about it now?
Get some sort of support system. It doesn't have to be a friend who does it. It doesn't have to be a traditional homeschool group. You can find yourself a homeschooling podcast, something that you can go to for advice when you need it. And then make sure you take full advantage of the range of opportunities that are available now. As you said, when you were growing up, there's no such thing. When I was growing up, it was strictly textbook based. Now there are computer based things. So see what will fit into your family's needs and be willing to throw out preconceptions of, we are going to do a Waldorf Montessori nature school, I don't know what, when actually you and your husband are both working from home. You don't have time for that, and you actually need your kids to do some video learning lessons and go on nature walks.
What about people who have a fear that even though they want to do homeschooling, they believe in the homeschooling, but they're afraid that if they take their child out of the regular system and they don't get that, high school diploma from, an accredited institution, that it will handicap them. What do you say to them?
You just go to the community college. The community college will let you take all sorts of intermediate or remedial classes, and then you are ready for the college level ones. That's if you're actually worried that your high school education isn't up to snuff. If they're up to snuff, then there you don't have any remedial whatsoever. And if you transferred from the community college to the four-year university cares nothing about what you did for high school. They only see the number of college credits that prove you are a good student, and they say, sure, we would like to have your money.
So there's no reason to be fearful about that outcome at all. That's good. That's good to know. And so I know that you are a homeschooling mom. Do you also run a business from home?
I do, yes.
And what does that entail?
I'm an online coach, so I am also a podcast host like you. I coach clients. I answer questions via email or other forms like that. And I spend time taking my own courses and doing my own professional development in a sense. So I might tell my kids, hey, I have a class. And they're like, oh, like I've got my computer class. Yes, me too. I have homework. I have this. I have that.
So constantly everybody's learning.
Yes.
So what would your top 3 tips be for staying organized as a homeschooling work from home mom?
Always know what you need to get done that day ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you can show up just for what's on your to-do list that day and not worry about anything else. You're not keeping it in your brain, you're keeping it written down since you have so many different things going on. So that would be tip number 1. Tip number 2 would be make sure you have your time buckets. Some people call them time blocks, so that you know exactly when you're homeschooling. You can give that your full attention exactly when you're running your business, then exactly when you're maybe cooking or catching up with your husband or working out or doing something for fun. If you don't have the bleed over, you don't have the mom guilt, the work guilt, the I have no time for myself guilt. And then the third tip is be honest about what you are resenting in your life. If there's something you don't like, there's usually a reason behind it. So don't just say, I'm being emotional or I shouldn't have a problem with this. If you are resenting something, see what you can do to change that, to make it easier for yourself. It might only be a 3-week, I need to not cook so much to get through the tough point in a new semester with school or a launch in your business. But the emotion is like a flashlight saying, you must change something. You are not happy here. You will get frustrated and you will burn out if you keep forcing yourself to do this.
Those are really good tips. I remember a while ago, like with starting a business, it's intense and it's I think it's quite easy to go down the burnout road. And I remember hearing on a podcast something about if you're not finding joy in something, then it's not doing you any good. And so you basically have two choices. If it's something that you can stop, then stop it, do something else that's going to bring you joy. Excuse me. And if it's something that you have to do, whether it's for your business or for whatever reason, then find a way to bring some joy into it. And having that focus just made a complete difference on choosing what to do that day and choosing how to do it that day. So it's very similar to what you're talking about now. What about when moms are feeling overwhelmed because they're juggling homeschooling, all the needs of the individual children, the household, the business, everything? What would you suggest that they could do to help? Like you mentioned a little bit, but is there anything else that you do? Like when it just feels for a moment like you can't breathe, what do you do?
I go through my to-do list and I reprioritize it.
Okay.
All the stuff that you're feeling like is too much, did it have to get done today? Does it have to get done this week or even this month? What stuff can you say, it needs to get done, but not right now? So remove as much immediate pressure and stress off yourself as you can, and then see what's the next biggest worry. Is it physically not having enough time to deal with laundry and housework and cooking? Well, if your kids are elementary age and up, they should be able to help you with some of that. So start offloading. Make sure you're not the only one doing everything. Like actively ask for extra help right now. And then make sure you are taking some time out for yourself, doing something that de-stresses you. That could be going for a walk, getting out in nature. It could be doing EFT or tapping. It could be disappearing, listening to 3 podcast episodes in a row. Something that refreshes you. You can't just go, go, go all the time.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, thinking about your 5 children again, from 5 years old to 15, and also growing up in a family that had 6 siblings. So, how are you cultivating the strong bond that you want to see between siblings?
They room share, almost all of them. So we have an odd number, and that means the youngest doesn't room share, but everyone else does. And we also had a couple close age gaps, so under 2 years. And those pairings are always really close. Some of it seems to have happened organically, especially as the younger ones get older. They're able to play better without having meltdowns. And it's almost like different younger siblings bond better with different older siblings. Like they all play with all of them, but sometimes your older sister gets you better than your older brother at a certain point. And sometimes you share different interests. So one son knows if he wants to play a game, ask this sister, not this sister, that kind of a thing. So I almost don't know how much I am doing. It is just the family culture. It has just happened.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice. What do you think are some misconceptions? Like I talked a little bit with you about some parents' concerns when they're considering homeschooling, or some overwhelm they might feel when they're homeschooling. What do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have about homeschooling? Like, have you faced anything from people outside your family unit as far as what you're doing, why you're doing it? What are the misconceptions?
The one I hear all the time is mostly, oh, I could never do that. I'm not a teacher. And I truly don't understand that one, because how hard is it to buy a textbook that is your math textbook for the year and tell your child, we will go through all of these lessons and we will take Christmas break and we will take summer break and whatever other holidays we want. And by the end of the year, you will have done everything you were supposed to do like you would have in public school, and you have learned it.
What do you think about I've only heard the term like within the last year or so, I guess it first kind of came into my world. But what do you think about the concept that they're labeling unschooling?
That is very interesting. That is part of what I dove into with the curriculum switch, because I had never heard of it before. And I realized what my daughters were actually desiring was a form of unschooling.
Yep.
And the more I learned, the more I realized it was not a nobody does anything scholastically. It was simply unchaining the academic tick marks from everyone does these 4 sciences in this particular order all the time, and saying, what do they want to learn? How can you make sure that by the end of high school, if they wish to go to college, they have all 4 things in each area, but you can go completely outside of the box how you get there. If they read enough space books in 6th grade to pass a high school astronomy course 3 years later, that's a plus. That is that kid retaining that amount of knowledge because they wanted to. There's one of their sciences. If they're sitting there saying, I love to craft, what else can you do with your hands? Can you give them the old-fashioned shop? Can you have them learn embroidery? Can you do enough of that and count out, I think the standard is like 120 hours of working with different crafts and put that as an elective on their transcript? What can you do that they would say, actually, I like this. I have some kids who love history. That doesn't mean they love any old history textbook. There are only certain ones they like. So how can you find what else that publisher does? Would you like all of the histories they put out? Oh, yes, because I like their style of writing. Now they love history as a subject. And all it took was you being willing to not say, I will buy a Becker curriculum for 12 years in a row, end of story.
Do you know about the Reggio Emilia philosophy?
I'm not sure I'm familiar. Can you explain it?
Well, it is very, what you're talking about with your high schoolers, it is very much that concept, but from birth. Basically, it says all children at any stage in their development is competent and capable in that stage that they're in. Their environment is extremely important. It's referred to often as the third teacher. And the belief is that through self-driven and project work, that they will reach their potential easier, faster, in more depth when they have some control of what they are choosing to delve into. It's mostly, Reggio Emilia is mostly with early years, although some elementary schools it's going into it. But it very much is the same concept of basically respect, like being respectful and tapping into and supporting a child's interests and desires.
Yes, that does sound like the same thing.
Yeah. So do you incorporate some of that with the younger ones, or is it mostly with the older children?
A little bit with the younger ones. I'm thinking of one kid in particular. He loved numbers. So I, quote unquote, pushed him on his math. I didn't push. He thought kindergarten math was stupid, in his words. What he meant was it was too easy. Yeah. He wanted the check marks, but he's now fiddling with 4th grade math.
And how old is he?
Because 7. Does he like reading? No, but his strength is numbers. Yeah. The reading will come when the reading needs to come. And in the meantime, I haven't had any other kid who is like, please just give me calculator toys and let me fiddle and look at the numbers and see if I hit 7 and the equals button and I start learning my multiplication tables just by playing with a calculator. And thinks their fractions are too easy. And what, do they not think I know anything? When he sees the next question in his math curriculum and it's one of the easy ones. Seeing his delight with number concepts, that's a gift to me, to know from 7 years old, this is going to be a big thing in his life. Wherever it takes him, it's going to be something to do with math and numbers.
Yeah, I know often parents will, ask how to motivate their children. And I usually respond with, you have to observe them first and really get to know them. And then, like, I remember when our son was maybe the same age, like around 7. I don't think he was older than that. And so he hadn't been reading for that long, but he loved baseball and he lived and breathed and baseball. And so we tried to create that environment in every area. Like, we had the books, we had, all this stuff going on. And I remember once he had asked me, I don't know if Scholastic is still a thing in North America.
It
So
is.
we used to, because of not having access to materials in English, we used to use Scholastic and eh, get all our books and things like that. And when Scholastic started to get into different educational computer games, which computer games was not something that I encouraged or allowed, but I remember him looking at the flyer for Scholastic, and it was like Christmas when the flyer came out, and I would say, pick out any book. That was one area I totally splurged on, and pick out any book that interests you. And there was a computer game that was about baseball, and he begged for it, which he'd never done before. I think because if he expressed an interest, I tried to support that. But this game was for like the reading age was 10 or 11. And I kept saying, it's not appropriate for you right now. So, wait a few years. And he was adamant. Like he wanted that baseball game. It was called Backyard Baseball. And it was full of math and all that kind of stuff that goes with different aspects of baseball. And so finally I said, well, we will get it and then we'll just put it away until it's something that you can handle. So of course we get it and, oh, can we just try it once? I was like, well, okay. And so the first time I sat down with them and I read the like if this happens and this happens. It was about math. It was an educational math thing with the topic being baseball. And he was good at math. So he could figure out all that stuff. But I had to read it to him because it was too hard. Second time, he got his father to sit down with him and read it, and that was fine. So the third time, and he loved it. And third time he asked again, and I said, well, I'm sorry, but that this is not how this is working. When you are able to do this independently, then we will bring it back out. And he said, well, let me try. And I said, well, okay, you got 20 minutes, And within such a short time, like it totally blew me away. He was reading like all of it. And it was kind of like it was validation that what we think a child can do is so much less than what they're capable of doing when we create the environment and give them the freedom to explore. Like it was just so that's why I think homeschool can be such a powerful, like really powerful tool where children understand the joy and the love of learning and that it has there's a reason for it. Like that's often what happens to kids in school where they really start to just fade away. It's like, what's this got to do with me? What's this got to do with life? I hate it. And yeah. Okay. So again, thinking about siblings, 5 siblings, how do you keep peace in your home where they're all together all day long, all night long, basically? How do you keep the peace?
We have a 3-hour quiet time every day, and you are not required to room share with your sibling during quiet time.
What time of day is it? Like, is it before studies, during,
It
after?
is after schoolwork, unless you happen to run into the afternoon. So it's the afternoon period when you might be in the afternoon slump. My brain needs a break. And you can have separate rooms. You can go ask a different sibling to play with you than you normally would. You can just be by yourself. Most of us are introverts. So they always know that there will be a time they can have quiet and they're not required to play with anybody, and the noise level in the house will go way down. That
Okay.
seems to have solved a lot.
Well, that's a really interesting strategy. I mean, that's really interesting. Just kind of giving them almost like self-regulating time so that the time
Mhm.
they are with others can be more positive.
Mhm. I mean, obviously that really more works for introverted children, but since we're an introvert-heavy household, that's the kind of self-regulation most of them need, is to know that they do not have to be around people all day and recharge partway through the day. I mean, I need to recharge partway through, so then they just started picking up. And sometimes it's really funny if you hear a 6-year-old tell you, I need some alone time, mommy.
Yeah. Well, they're really our best educators anyway. They teach us more than we will ever teach them. Tell me, is there any parenting challenge that you are dealing with today?
We have the learn to read thing going on right now. Though, like you, we are in process of finding a reward for it. This child really wants a camera and is probably careful enough to handle a camera. And we said, all right, I guess we'll buy you a camera. Unlike your siblings who get cameras when they're teenagers, you can have one at your age if you learn how to read. So that is now flipped reading from mommy and daddy have ordered me to read, and I don't know why and I don't care, to I really want this thing. And when I can prove that I can do this, I can get that. So that's very much a work in progress. But it took thinking outside the box and looking at what that child wanted, because I was having a really hard time. Like, don't you want to learn information? You could learn about tractors. You wouldn't have to wait till daddy could read this book to you. It just wasn't connecting. And then he finally said, I want a camera. Everyone else has cameras. Why can't I have a camera? They don't let me borrow their cameras, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, aha, I could use a reward philosophy for this.
And is it working?
Yes, he will cry during reading practice, and he will make himself do reading practice every day because he wants a camera badly enough. He will push his edges that much.
How do you stay firm?
If he's in tears, I'll say, do you need a break? Like, you can go off and come back and we'll finish this page later today. And then it's his choice if he feels he needs to self-regulate and go away for a while, or if he's like, no, no, I don't care. I'm going to push through it. But I'm letting him make the choice of what level he needs, what kind of support he needs right then.
So it sounds like communication is kind of at the forefront of most things.
Very much so, especially with the high schoolers. And
Mm-hmm.
then like the middle schooler, I have to always have a very logical reason for everything, or he will argue me out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Learning about debate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I used to try that one too. It actually backfired at one point, but especially when he was younger, and he would ask for something that I wanted to say no to, but instead of saying no, I would say, convince me. I don't agree with this, but convince me. And he carried that on for years and years. But sometimes he was right. It was like, as long as I could listen and be open, it's not like my perspective of things was always automatically right just because I was the mom. So yeah. Um, if you had to put a definition to what you think a successful parent is, what would it be?
Someone who nurtures the children she has in front of her.
Beautiful. All right, so we're getting down to the last two questions of the interview. And the first one is just for fun. And it is, what would the title be for a movie about your family life? And what would the movie summary or synopsis say?
I think the title would be How to Go for Your 5 Kid Dreams, Even When People Think You're Crazy. And synopsis would be Alyssa always wanted a large family, an international focus, and a career that made an impact. So what she got was a 5-kid family, an MK husband, and after all the babies, online business.
Oh, that sounds like a good movie. That would be fun. That would be fun. All right. So the final question is, picture yourself sharing some wisdom to your child as they are entering the world of parenting themselves. So the first time that you become a grandmother, what words of wisdom would you share with that child?
I would ask her what questions she had for me to start off. It's not about me trying to dump a bunch of advice on her. It's about meeting her in the moment with what she is really feeling like she needs or lacks.
Beautiful. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about before we finish up?
No, this has been a fun conversation.
Well, yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Well, then thank you very much. Thank you for sharing a lot more about homeschooling and about parenting a larger family, both things that aren't as common as they used to be. So it was really, really lovely to get some fresh insights on what that looks like today. So thank you.
If you're a parent raising a boy in today's complex world, be sure to explore sonhoodcoaching.com. You'll discover expert guidance and support designed to help you unlock your full parenting potential. As Amelia Gambetti says, this job is too difficult and too beautiful to do alone. Together we can explore this adventure and discover the magic of raising boys.